privilege to introduce a dynamic leader whose journey is nothing short of inspiring. From being one of India's most beloved television stars to becoming one of country's most influential women leaders, she has redefined what it means to lead with purpose, resilience, and impact. Over the years, she has held critical portfolios, including Ministry of Human Resource Development, Textiles, Information and Broadcasting, Women and Child Development, and Minority Affairs. She's often broken new grounds and set new benchmarks in every role. A powerful voice for women's empowerment, education, and social reform, her work continues to shape public policy and inspire change at the grassroots levels. Please join me in welcoming Smriti Irani. Moderating this conference is Akshi, one of the co-chairs of this year's India Business Conference.
Thank you, Shruti. I think, first of all, I'll just start by saying what an honor it is to sit across you. I've grown up, as so many of us have, watching you every night on TV for so many years, and I can't tell you how excited.
So all I'll say to that is thank you for the paycheck.
My family is so excited back in India, waiting for the photos.
So I hope we can oblige and even express my gratitude to them. I think for somebody who's in the public space, and especially for somebody who's had a media experience of over 2.5 decades, to have generations within one family hold you of some emotional significance in their life, or to bring joy to somebody, I think for me is a very, very satisfying achievement in life.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. And like you said, your journey has been anything but, conventional. From being this beloved star on television to now contributing to actually making national policies, your story exemplifies reinvention and resilience. So this transition from the peak of your career in the entertainment to actually transitioning into politics, which is altogether a different ball game, what was that inner calling or switch, and how did that shift look for you?
I think one of the greatest misconceptions about my journey is that I transitioned from one career to another. I actually had a media career and a service in politics simultaneously. The visible switch happened when I became a member of parliament, because that's a dedicated service of 24/7, and you cannot say I'm unavailable to your constituents or your constituency. And that change and shift happened for me in the year 2011 when I went to parliament. But before that, in the year 2000, I was privileged to be the Goodwill Ambassador for a WHO program in India, which focused primarily on child health and maternal mortality. And in the year 2000, the challenge was that over 500,000 children in our country were dying due to diarrhea. And the WHO then, which was also assisted by the USAID, said, can we spread the word about the use of ORS? So I had the good fortune of introducing ORS with zinc to India and take that work across the country. And in that journey, I realized that to bring sufficient and significant change, one cannot be limited to just being a brand ambassador, just being a voice, though having multiple voices for the same cause are of great significance. And I had two options. I wanted to either become a policy maker, which could for me mean that I sit through the rigmarole of UPSC, or become an elected official, or be a part of the electoral political sphere in our country. I didn't have the, inclination towards sitting and going through that whole rigor of the UPSC exam. So I came into electoral politics. I was in the youth wing of the BJP in the year 2003. Prime Minister Modi is the second Prime Minister I served with. My first Prime Minister that I served with was Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And I fought my first election when I was 27 years old. And I've had the privilege of serving my political organization in the national executive continuously for 5 to 6 terms. I've been the national secretary of the BJP 2 terms. I've been the national president of the women's wing. So I've had 2.5 decades in politics and in media. I think many were flummoxed when they thought, "Arey Tulsi yahan kya kar rahi hai?" But I think that you should put the money where the mouth is. I had read in my ideological family a stalwart who created a youth body who said it's very easy to give up failure and then gravitate to politics. What is difficult as a professional is to go out and create possibilities in the private sector or in the professional field and then take a conscientious decision to come into policy making or politics. You recognize the personal sacrifice then, and you value then your contribution, instead of looking at politics as the last refuge. So in India, many media personalities would gravitate towards politics when they felt that their media career had saturated. I left at the peak of my career, and I have absolutely no regrets, because in a country of 1.4 billion people, to have the privilege to serve not only in Parliament, then become a part of the Council of Ministers, which is 60 plus people, and then go and become a part of the cabinet, which is not more than 22 people, to serve your country and her interests is one of the greatest privileges you can get as an Indian. So for me, that service was of great importance, and a career in media was too little a sacrifice for it.
Yeah. That's quite a journey. And, and I think all of us do this from the outside world. It is very easy to put labels and put people into boxes because it feels more comfortable for us to understand them.
But my journey was not my media journey.
Yeah.
Again, one of the presumptions about me is that media is a happenstance. It was a deliberate choice. I have a senior from one of my schools who's seated here in the front row. And I told her, I said, her batch was the most pretty one and we all got uglier as we. But, I had a very conservative background. My father's a Punjabi. His mother was a Maratha. My Nana is a Bengali. My Nani was from undivided Bengal, lived in Assam, Dhubri. So I had this whole confluence of varied cultures, languages. I'm married to a Parsi. And, imagine the I think, pedigree of the progeny and the confusions that can be, attributed to the variety in my family genetic mix. But I started working in Delhi. I don't know how many of you, anyone here from Delhi? Okay. So you know Janpat?
Yeah.
So when I was 16 years old, I was selling cosmetics for $200 a day on the streets of Janpat. When I was 17, I was one of the first 3-4 women who came into logistics, and my whole day would, apart from trying to study, would go between Palam, Hawai Adda, go to Golda Khana, and I'm giving the Delhi reference because only they will understand the geography. Go to Nai Delhi railway station, then come to Sapna Cinema. There was an office upstairs, and I would do the roster. So I understood the landscape of private sector, 32 years ago, and how logistically, at that time, there were challenges, but also opportunities. I went to Bombay then, and I thought to myself that I could graduate from being just a menial worker to owning the business. And that's when I realized I had no money to own the business. I also was a Miss India finalist. I don't look like it right now, but I was. And after that, I had to take a loan to be a finalist because I had no money to compete. And my father, the quintessential Punjabi, he said that, you know what, you need to either get married or pay that money back and get yourself a job. I had a 1-year extension that, okay, give me a year and I'll pay you back. If I don't, I'll marry whoever you say I will. And it's on the last day when that 1 year was getting over that I got Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. So I was a Miss India finalist who couldn't get a job. And whoever's here from Bombay, the Linking Road McDonald's, which was the first ever McDonald's there, I got my job there as a sweeper. That's because I went, I still remember, to this job interview at Churchgate, and the job was for Jet Airways, in-flight stewardess. And Jet Airways, whoever was sitting there, God bless them, because they said, "Oh, you don't have the personality to be a public person." I said, "Okay." And and no wonder the airline tanked. And then I went, I had the next door job was McDonald's. And that was the last job that they were hiring for. They were in fact shutting shop. And I still remember the gentleman who interviewed me, and he said, "Listen, this is like an $1,800 a month job." And I was like, "I'll take it, I have no money." And I still remember I asked him a question that had him gobsmacked. I said, "How do you get to be manager?" And he was like, "I'm giving you the job of somebody who gets to wash the dishes." I said, "No, but how do you get to be manager?" I think that was the energy then, that fine, I can begin at the bottom of the pyramid, but I need to find the best position that I can virtually work my way to. Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahuti happened not because I was starry-eyed and wanted to be an actor, but because the paycheck was better than sweeping floors. It was $1,600 a day. So I just did the math quickly, and Ekta Kapoor said, "You know what a great..." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, whatever, give me the paper." And she was like, "Listen to the story." I said, "No interest, give me the paycheck." So at that time, I mean, how many of you have watched Saas Bhi Kabhi? Okay, oh wow. Okay, so I had this gentleman who was a very, very well-known model, and he had 10 times the paycheck than I did. And he looked at me like I was some urchin off the street. And he said, "It's a horrible thing and you should not do it. I'm dumping this job." And I was like, "Oh God, can you imagine? I'm desperate for the job and he's dumping it." And I knew at that time that if I was good at that job, maybe I can match his paycheck. So in 1 year, I did better than his paycheck. I renegotiated my contract.
So, building on to something that you said and like pivoting the discussion to gender disparity, and this is coming from a personal experience and maybe from experience of so many women that I've worked with, women who speak their mind are often labeled as difficult to work with or just hard
Which
to
is fine, as long as you succeed. It's true.
So, how do you think, women who are like starting, like somebody like me who's starting their career, can own rooms that are traditionally not built for them? And like, have you gone through the same? And how do you deal with like constantly being judged or like even misunderstood sometimes?
One, I never seek validation from anyone. I've never had in my entire life. So it doesn't matter who says what about me. As long as the criticism is constructive, then you should give a listen and course correct. And you tend to have a sense of who's being constructive in their criticism because that input comes without malice. And we as human beings tend to recognize malice in a voice. Many a times we may be so submerged by the very burden of our circumstances that we may misconstrue somebody's position. But do give a listen to every criticism, every input that comes your way. When you say there are some rooms not made for women, there are many rooms not made for anybody. The idea is, if I kept waiting for a place on somebody's table, I would never be where I am today. I decided I'll make my own table. You're free to sit in it, on it, with me, without me. And I think that's what parity means. Parity cannot be only looked from the prism of one gender. If I work as an entrepreneur, I make sure that if I give maternity leave to somebody, as a boss, I have given paternity leave to a joint secretary who said, "My kid needs to go for board exams. I need to take 1 month leave." And I've signed that order. So I think that because you feel gender justice is skewed to only one gender, you may end up perpetuating that same gap or bias. As individuals, and I'm not saying it's pertinent to only our gender, we need to be mindful of that we do not make others suffer the same consequences we have. Insofar as in the workplace, you have to be very mindful that though parity sounds like a great concept in justice, you have to be very, very vehement in your positions when you do entry-level negotiations. Like I said, when I was in Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, my paycheck was 10 times lesser than the gentleman who was starring opposite. I did not bemoan him that because he had worked towards a stature himself. I only said that I wanted to renegotiate my contract after 1 year because I was of the opinion that I will make, nobody is indispensable, but I will make myself valued enough to have the producer sit and renegotiate. And I think that you're right, women who are vocal about their aptitude, women who do not seek too much of support or shoulders to cry on are many a time stacked, but that's a part of the job, that's a part of being successful. You need to keep your eyes focused on opportunities. You cannot, I believe that I will not waste my time on bemoaning somebody's vulgarity towards me. I would rather focus on the opportunities that I get, learn how to negotiate contracts well, and I think that's the way forward. Know your value. If you think you're at the bottom of the chain, create value for yourself enough for somebody at the top to pull right up and say, you're of value. You bring great value to the project. You bring great value to the enterprise, and hence you should be sitting here. That's what I did, and I'm sure most of you do that. So you're sorted.
Yeah, that was like a mini masterclass in building your own brand and negotiation.
Yeah, that's why they had to change 4 Mihirs, but there was only one Tulsi.
Now, shifting gears a little bit and talking about something that all of us keep talking in our classrooms is AI and education. So you've led many educational reforms, and you've seen firsthand how technology can be both a barrier and a bridge. So from your time as an education minister, what are some lessons that you took away in terms of how technology can actually work in classrooms for both students and teachers?
I think when I was creating the national education policy, at that time, you do remember there was no pandemic. So there was no understanding of the concept of delivery of education through technology, because there is now, even to this day, scientific evidence that only deliverance of academic skills through virtual platforms may not suffice with regards to student experience. And that is why in the year 2014, when I began this whole concept of building India's first MOOCs platform, there was a lot of bureaucracy which said, why? There are no takers. My belief as leadership is not about firefighting today. It is to also envision challenges of tomorrow and preparing your cohort, your constituency, your people for what if there is a challenge tomorrow. In hindsight, then building the MOOCs platform in the year and dedicating it to the country in the year 2015 now looks good, because in the pandemic, the entire digitalization and the National Digital Library that we created was of great value to people and students predominantly. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a cost to delivery of that technology. There is a cost to that device which needs to get more and more affordable. There is also the challenge that knowledge systems do not exist only in English. We are a country of 16,000 dialects and 125 constitutionally recognized languages. Today, if I look at the explosion of, let's say, AI, how many of those systems can speak in the languages which have ingrained many knowledge systems? So I think that it's a great mix in terms of what technology can offer. I think the full expanse of it is yet to be understood. AI, once upon a time, was positioned to be the harbinger of equity. But today there is enough research which can evidence the fact that AI may actually also not be able to bridge certain gaps. Let's say if I talk about the gender aspect and AI, and let me just give you a very differentiated sector to show you what AI does. So in automobile sector, and this is a research that I had read up courtesy the BBC, seat belts, airbags, and the safety measures, they take into consideration the physical form of men for their research, not taking into consideration the physicality of a woman and also, let's say, a pregnant woman. As a consequence of this, research has shown that in the same incident, man versus female driver, women are 17% more likely to die. So I think that when you look at AI, I don't know how appropriate somebody at Kellogg would think. Do look up, I've done my FinTech executive education program from Berkeley. Berkeley Haas, there was a research by a lady who co-authored it, Genevieve Smith. Now she studied 133 AI systems and found that over 40% of them had a gender bias. But how did Genevieve come to that, study? She actually had applied for a credit card along with her spouse. They had the same credit scores. Their taxation looked very, very buoyant, and there was no difference between the economic, I think, viability of her vis-a-vis her husband. She ended up getting 10 times less of the credit limit than her husband. And when they approached the company, they said, well, it's just the algorithm. So the algorithm did not compute the same credit limit for a woman who was at par financially with her husband in these United States. Now, if you look at the OpenAI systems, it is said that OpenAI has looked through every crevice of information on the internet and then built its systems. How many of those systems recognize the economic volume that is coming out, let's say, from India with regards to women? If that is not under consideration right now, can you imagine what the algorithm does for women who own small businesses but may not have enough digital evidence to talk about how robust they are? So I think the verdict is still out in terms of AI, because ultimately, let's presume you want to educate yourself in any other university other than whoever's studying back home in India. What would their credit score look like when they'd like a student loan to study somewhere? What would their academic journey look like if they belong to a school which is not digitally connected right now? So I think those aspects need consideration. It's become very somber. Okay, just checking.
Yeah, so I think this is a similar debate that we keep having all day, every day at Kellogg as well. And like you mentioned, India is such a diverse land, and now with diversity comes like diversity of issues, and with now media and technology exploding, there's so much noise around. How do you consume media, and like how do you filter out noise to see what you want to focus on? What are the kind of issues that you want to focus on in terms of policy making?
I think that there is an explosion of digital opportunities to learn, and there's an implosion of understanding. So you have to take into consideration noise of all kinds. Because if you want to truly be informed, you cannot say, I will only look at one piece on one kind of information. I would like to know information with regards to people who differ with me. I would like to know how they reach an informed position, even if they have a different point of view. So I do not filter out differences in opinion at all. Because for me to, let's say, meet a person of a different ideological background or of a different mind frame or mindset, I would like to know how they reach the conclusions that they do. It is not essential that my point of view is absolute. I may be obsolete. But the issue is, till you've not heard everybody, how can you reach an informed position? The beauty of information is that it evolves, it's not stagnant. So those who believe that my position is the utopian position actually are not reading much. Because as you evolve with age, with experiences, your vision, your view of the world changes. So I think that many a times we want that sweet spot when you're 20, when you're 30, when you're 35, will not happen. You will evolve with time. You will know how to filter that noise yourself. Because if politicians start teaching you how to filter the noise, God help you.
Okay, so the timekeeper has already told me we just have 5 minutes left. So I'm
Okay.
going to converge this.
Typical women talking, you want us to shut up. And none of the men are clapping. Only the women are clapping. The men are very circumspect. They're like, should I not?
Okay, so to converge, so many of us young Indians want to build and serve the nation in different capacities, whether it's startups, whether it's policy, whether it's social impact. So what gives you hope about this next younger generation, and what would your advice be to somebody who's sitting in this room who wants to just create a difference in India, in the world?
Firstly, don't listen to advice. I didn't, because I was told at 16 I'm the first girl in my family to work, and everybody says कि जनानियाँ नौकरियाँ नहीं करती हैं, and I didn't listen. And I think that one of the challenges we have right now is that you presume hope can only be young. There's a sense of ageism in it. Hope can also come from experience. Just because somebody has white hair, just because somebody stoops a little, does not mean they can't be the harbinger of hope. I think what is essential is, how do you pay back? So why do I doff my hat to a senior who's here from my school? When I was in Standard 5, I was studying in an unregistered school, under a canopy, under a tent. And I used to keep looking at the school opposite mine, which was a brick and mortar. And I would stand outside that gate every day, and nuns would just pass me by. It was a Catholic school. And I wanted to be inside because they taught English well, and I wanted to be a part of that academic journey. The problem was that we had no money. And my mother was a housekeeper at Taj Mansingh. And everybody got fed up of me standing outside that school every day. Till one day the nun came up and said, what do you want? I said, I just want admission into this school. She says, well, if you pass an exam, you can get in. I went back home, told my mom, she was a single mother. She said, but even if you pass the exam, I have no money to let you in that school. I said, why don't you go back to work? I mean, Taj is owned by the Tatas. Maybe we'll find an answer. She went back to admin. Admin said, well, if the kid can score over 60%, we will give a scholarship. I studied, got in. I got a scholarship from Tatas. They don't know me from Adams. So you never know who you help and how they turn out. So the only request I have of people in this room is, you never know who that kid will turn out to be. All somebody had to do was help pay my school fees. So if you can do that for one person, 2 people, 10 people, you don't need to do something amazingly big like give a grant and build a building. Build a life for somebody. And that's what I hope people in this room will do.
Okay, so before I pass it on to the Q&A, one fun question. What's something about politics that we don't get to see in the headlines and something we'd be surprised about?
I don't think anything is surprising about politics anymore. I think everybody who sits and legislates is not badly intentioned. That irrespective of our political divergent views, we serve one country. As a policymaker, my greatest joy is that in my 10 years as minister, none of my bills were opposed by the opposition. That I could create bonhomie enough to pass legislation without people pushing back. And to create that kind of bonhomie, it is essential to open yourself to everybody's point of view. Because ultimately, why do we go to Parliament? We go to Parliament to serve a greater cause, which is our country. So I think you'll be surprised how much we can get done if irrespective of how caustic we may seem and scream at each other at the 9 o'clock news debate, we still can get work done if it means that there's one goal and one alone, which is India. So that's my experience. Been there, done that. And I'm sure that, and I'm sure that that clarity, that bipartisanship is shocking for many, but it has been done in our country. The other issue is, I think, that what is true of one nation in terms of the velocity of change may not be true for another. We live in a world of differentiated resources, differentiated aspirations, differentiated goals nationally or regionally that we hope to meet. So don't judge the positions of various nations at the same scale. Look at everybody's history. How far behind did they start in the race? And how much have they caught up? We've been declared independent just 7.5 decades ago. And we are to compete with technologies and with nations who have never had a single measure of colonial pasts. So keep that under consideration. And we are a nation of people that should not use frugal innovation as an administrative, private sector or political slur. The wisest of wise people reallocate or reuse resources for larger good. So if we can do that, I think that's what makes us special. And lastly, I think that the pandemic truly showed to the world what not only our potential is, but what is our connect to the global community. We are a country of 600,000 villages. Just look back, when the pandemic struck, we were told that how would India manage? We managed well. We created a vaccine, we delivered it to 1.4 billion people, and we shared it with 160 countries. And we did not pontificate. We did not look at them as though they are beneath us. We shared, we created vaccine parity with countries that could not afford to go to their labs and create it for themselves. I, as textiles minister then, I remember the panic. We had no PPE suits. India, for all its independent existence till then, was importing 55,000 to 60,000 PPE suits every year. And suddenly, on the last day of February, WHO comes up with its standards. And on the 1st of March, all borders shut down. I still remember there were 60 of us, bureaucrats, academicians, lab scientists, and private sector. 60 of us on the 1st of March, we got together. We said, how do we get it done? We had 30 machines somewhere sitting in Japan. Hardeep Puri was aviation minister. I said, ek plane de do. He said, theek hai, kahan jana hai? I said, Japan se machine uthani hai. The manufacturing was available with the gentleman in Gurgaon. He said, I have no money, but get me the machine, get me the material, let me give it a shot. There was a lady in Phagwara who had the raw material. She used to ship it to the US. I called that lady. She said, listen, in the next 48 hours, because my businesses are shutting down, I'm going to file for bankruptcy. I called finance to say, please don't let her file for bankruptcy, which is the bank that, kind of, she owes money to. We had one policeman in the Phagwara police station who sat on a bike, went and picked up that raw material. Imagine the pandemic and everybody thinking they're going to die. That cop gets that material. We find the nearest railway station. I call the railway minister, ye coach de do, Coimbatore mein lab hai. Can you imagine? The lab scientists of Coimbatore turned up. They said, we'll test this. We tested it. 72 hours later, we knew we had the material, but we had no more labs. I said, and the railway minister said, daily mein Coimbatore tent now. I said, wait, we spoke to DRDO. We changed 11 labs across the country. We got material done. Private sector that used to make T-shirts for Gap, T-shirts for all the big brands across the world, they repurposed their entire manufacturing. In March, we had not a single company. By May, we had 1,100 companies. By June, we were the second largest exporters in the world. And I, as minister, had not given 1 rupee a subsidy. So if 60 well-meaning Indians across sectors can get together and get this done, can you imagine what 1 billion people can get done?
Okay, I'm going to take a step back and pass it on to the audience for questions.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Apurva. So my question is around the national education policy. So as you were laying the groundwork for it, what were some of the most surprising insights or anecdotes when you were actually consulting those gram panchayats or talking to the communities that will actually be impacted? And now that the policy has been enacted and it's been a couple of years, what are the major challenges that you see with respect to its actualization or implementation?
So firstly, policy before the education policy that was proposed by me was never made in consonance with people. It was always made within a few number of academics, bureaucrats and politicians in Delhi. And that is why, with the permission of the Prime Minister, we went to 225,000 village education councils. We went to every district education officer and said, can you convene all universities, all colleges, all parent-teacher associations, all school principals, give us their feedback. We technologically, through MyGov, created a platform to hear from everybody, including international organizations. But I think the sweetest anecdote is me calling Kapil Sibal and saying, sir, do you have an idea? I think that was least expected. So I called every former education minister, even if they were from the Congress party, from the left, because this was a national education policy. It was not BJP education policy. So all of them contributed. Then the government took it to every MP, every MLA. We contacted every Zilla Parishad head to say, contribute. This is your policy. This is a policy for the future of India. They did. I think that was something that brought me great joy. But you have to be mindful of the fact that it's in the concurrent list. Even if I set the policy in motion, it is incumbent upon state governments to then implement it through the education system, which is under the jurisdiction of the state. Private sector has been given the wherewithal to change curriculum to suit the needs of the students, to change infrastructure to suit the needs of the students. And I think the challenge lies is when you profess and support autonomy, but those who have those autonomous positions don't deliver.
Thank you.
Hello. Right here. I should say, yeah, there you go. Thank you for speaking to us today. Big fan, of course. My question is, as a second-generation entrepreneur, I see a lot of things that they do right in the US, and I would love to bring those back to India. And I've been wondering, in your experience, what is it that you see here that you would like to see in India as well?
I'm a pragmatist. And I think everybody who's very invested in deep tech needs to recognize that we are a part of an export control regime. So you're asking me, can I just devour the cherry on top of the cake with my hands tied to my back? The cake looks good. I want the cherry and the cake. But my hands are not free. So at the Arizona State University, I was with the president, Michael Crow. And Michael Crow has always spoken of design flaws in the university systems in the US. And I attracted Dr. Crow's attention to say that when it comes to technology, the fundamental design flaw is that you own all the enterprise software. And then you bear the flag of economic nationalism, national security, and then deny that technology to many parts of the world who can possibly collaborate and make that technology more robust. So I believe that if there is one thing that I would like for my country is not continue to reduce it to a consumption force. We have the talent to build technology if you let us out of that export control regime. What flummoxes me is that India has always been a rule-based country. We have not broken those partnerships which are fundamental to making technology robust. I mean, we are a country which even gave a terrorist due process. We extradited one from here in the US took them back home. And the first thing that terrorists went to was a court of law. So we have exhibited enough deference to rules and laws. But I think for me, what is important is to always understand that if technology is not free-flowing, can you genuinely build? Or will you just be reduced to continue to build applications on top of that technology, or white labeling that technology and calling ourselves great innovators? Because the challenge with research is everything that you research may not end up with a successful event. So given that there are restraints in terms of resources, given that we are living in a global economy where there is right now immense disruption, till the dust settles, can you genuinely expect somebody to come up with a plan which will be equally viable, let's say 1 month down the line? See?
Okay, we'll do
So your
one
shoulder
last-
shrug is as good as mine.
One last quick question before my team throws me out.
Hello, ma'am. I'm Mahim. So you're a great public speaker. It was great seeing you and hearing you live today. So my question is about, as future Kellogg leaders here are sitting, would you recommend us or give us any tips to break that stress and anxiety when coming up to more than 100 or like thousands of people and speaking in front of them and being a great public speaker and leaving a mark on them?
You can't speak to people if you can't look them in the eye. You cannot resonate with people if you don't look them in the eye. And the only way you can look them in the eye is if you're self-assured and if you know that you don't know everything. So I came to Kellogg knowing that I may leave with something new. I may meet people who know more than I do. And that is the, I think, exciting proposition for every platform that I go to. So if you're nervous looking people in the eye, you need to begin from there. Most people are nervous because they seek validation. So I think I don't. That's why for me it's a bit easy. It's you may think it's fascinating to be me, but ask my husband, it's not nice to live with me. People who are of repute, people who are constant with regards to change and public persona, they may exhibit this whole exuberance of being who they are. But they are complex people. Because irrespective of the fact that you don't seek validation, you do face a lot of vitriol. And irrespective of how strongly you're built, you are at the end of the day a human being. So the best thing that you can do as a public speaker is to emotionally strengthen yourself so that nobody else but the people who love you, only their validation. And in fact, for me, even if I love somebody, it is not out of compulsion but out of choice that I live with them. Now I have that mindset because I come from being very poor. I had, at the age of 7, decided I may be born poor, but I'll die rich. Now, if somebody at 7, standing on the road, homeless, would say that, you would look at them as though they've lost their mind. But I think that is that mindset that makes me speak the way I do. Because there was no other way but going up.
Thank you.
Great. So to end, I would just like to say thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for being so candid. I think we're all leaving with great stories and great laughs. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for the conversation.